Welcome back, everyone, to the Unlocked podcast. We are here today. It is episode 28. Yes.
That sounds very confident.
28?
No clue.
Episode 28, I think. Oh, we are three global business owners. Is that fair?
I like that. Global.
Yeah. Well, we're from, one of us, yours truly, is from Calgary, Alberta. Tone, where are you sitting today?
Minnesota.
Tony Hawkinson from Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
And Dying Chad Lingefeld, where are you?
I'm in North Carolina this week.
North Carolina. Yes, this week you are a bit of a global traveler, so it's nice of you to pop back home for a couple days.
So we're actually on episode 34, according to
What?
Apple Podcast.
Oh, okay. So scratch that. Welcome back to the Unlock podcast. This is episode 34, approximately.
Really close to 28.
That was close. Yes. We're today. You know what, guys? I'm excited for today.
You don't sound excited.
This is my excited face, Tony. Look, for everyone that's listening, go to YouTube. You can see this face and how excited it is.
It looks a little bit like a two-tone face. Like, those cookies that are chocolate and vanilla.
I'm hoping editing can make this. Yeah, I might have overdone it with the hat versus suntan lotion. So a little bit.
Yeah.
In fairness, if you didn't wear the hat, you might have some other burning problems.
God. Hot episode. Moving on. Top 5 career moments is what we're here about. Because that is why I'm excited. Not anything to do with the color of my face. God, that looks dumb.
Yeah, it is. I mean, not the color of your face, just
the face.
Yeah. Wow, we're off to a great start here.
It is good. I want to acknowledge Tony has shaved his face as well. He's looking sharp. Chad is blah. But today we're getting into top 5 career moments, which I thought was it was a good topic. 1, because I came up with it. 2, because I think there is a lot to learn from the things that have gone well that we probably oversee. And I thought it was a cool little trip down memory lane for myself, even just thinking, okay, we've been doing this about 12 or 13 years. A lot of good things have happened, but, part of I'm just going to call it the entrepreneurial grind and the entrepreneurial mindset is you don't really stop to smell those roses, right? Is you hit one out of the park or something goes well or, what have you. It's, well, what's next? What do we fix next? You move on to the next thing, what else? What else, Chad? And that, it becomes a habit. So it's just times like these, you sit and think about, okay, so what has gone well? What were the decisions that led up to it? What was kind of the context and the story behind it, and how's it impacting you now? So I thought that might be cool because I think there'll be some learning lessons out there that we can take away and maybe even help somebody that's listening. How's that sound?
That would be the hope. I think back a few episodes ago, and I'm trying to figure out which exact number it is so that we can reference it, because that is one thing that we're a bit challenged on at times. We did an episode on failures or lessons that we learned from mistakes that we have made, and
about 27. If this is 32, that'd
what
be
is
about
the
27.
point of even guessing?
Here's the problem is that every podcast platform that we have produced on, it doesn't give you an episode number. So I have no clue. I have to count.
If only there was a way for us to write these down.
Is your pen broken, Tom?
No, I don't have an issue. I have a list.
In the episodes from
But then we get into Chad starts randomly splitting stuff into 2 and surprises you mid-episode. And
sounds
then
risky.
It was one time, and it's just always a thing.
Tony is still mad about that. That was episode 12, Tony.
Yeah.
We did 2 episodes on mistakes and what the lessons that we learned from it. They were published on February 27th and March the 6th. Failing Forward and Beyond Setbacks. Those were those 2 episodes that we talked about mistakes. So this is kind of the reverse of that is what you're looking for, Lars?
Well, just top career moments. So what whether it be a decision you made or something that happened in the business or whatever it was that's really impacted you and your business going forward. Gotcha. What are some of the good things that have happened? And not so much, not so much the, what it was. What were the decisions? How did it come together? How did you get to that kind of major win?
So we get to have story time associated with what the results were.
Exactly. I want a little story about the dumb luck that has gotten you to where you are, Chad. Tony, all right, we're starting with you.
Yeah, Tony's going to lead us off.
Because I know you like going first, and I know you like the surprise, so surprise, you're first.
Well, it wasn't really a surprise considering you actually created a nice agenda for your topic, and it says right here that I'm number one. So I just like to highlight that. It says Tony's number one. So I think that's very important to call out that.
No, it's a possessive. Tony's number one, not a okay. So
not a statement.
Yes, contrary to popular belief, we do have mostly a loose agenda that we do start with every episode.
It's the following. The following of the agenda is where we usually fall apart.
Two of the three of us don't stick with the agenda. You can guess which ones. But we do have one that we try to start with until Tony gets upset, and then won't create one because he says we don't follow it. But and for comparison, today we have on the agenda, I wish I could put this on the screen, top 5 career moments. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Oh, okay.
Chad, you want an agenda for me, you get what you get, and you don't get upset. Tony, can you please jump in here and tell me about the career moment?
So I'm trying to decide how I want to play this one. I'm going to call this one career moment. It could be 2, but I'm going to make it 1, and we'll see where we get. So working at my former job, Thomson Reuters, in corporate finance, I'm going to call that a career moment. Growing up, I was new of my dad's business. I kind of knew always what I wanted to do. And I don't really know if I did this intentionally, but I specifically remember somebody telling me when I was younger, you should really go work somewhere else, get some other perspective. Even if you know you want to end up working for your dad and in the family business, get some other perspective. And I didn't really intentionally listen to him, but I happened to kind of just follow suit with that. Right. In college, I went and got an internship like everyone else I was going to college with, and ended up getting a job offer and just said, I'll try this and see where it takes me. I got bored with it rather quickly. But along the way, kind of 2 things that came out of going down that career moment. One, I learned a lot of valuable skills. I learned a lot about database management. I learned a lot about the corporate world, learned a lot of things that are done in the corporate world, what I liked and what I didn't like, and mostly what I didn't like. I realized that it was very consistent and boring for me. Even though I was learning a lot of valuable skills, I didn't have the passion towards what I was doing. And then immediately when I started working for, at the time, Bloomington Security Solutions, I really enjoyed what I was doing. And when I was at my old job, I was always looking at the clock, what's coming next? When can I get to go to lunch? When do I get to go home? And it was always looking for that next milestone of a time thing. And the second I started working in this business, that was gone. I loved what I did. I never felt like it was work. And it gave me kind of the feeling of what's driven me going forward, which is I want others to have the same feeling that I have, and that I don't feel what I do is necessarily a job. It's fun. I don't ever, if I am looking at the clock, it's more like, oh crap, I have to go home now, as opposed to not because I don't like to go home, but like I haven't got all my stuff
Sorry,
done.
Greta.
Got twisted. But you still do really look forward to lunch. That's one thing.
Yes. The lunch for different reasons. I do like lunch. But
so do you think the whole change, do you think that was like being able to have control over your own kind of destination, or do you think?
Yes, I definitely think that there was an aspect of it of being able to make change. So like if there was something and just understanding the whole picture of what was happening, there definitely was a control aspect, but also just being in control of my own destiny, but also being able to do something about it. So like I like to solve problems, and in a corporate environment, when there was a problem, I couldn't do anything about it. It was go tell this person and then go back to your job. Where here, if there's a problem, I can fix it. So.
Yeah. And I wonder, immediately think there's probably a bunch of people in that same situation, even in our own teams and our own staff, and makes me wonder immediately, how many of our staff feel like that? How many of our team members feel they can make that impact?
Yeah, and I have thought about that as we've gotten larger, is like, how do you keep people involved in fixing those problems while also keeping them doing their normal job?
Yeah.
I think the biggest change was just being able to actually see what was happening with it. You know, at a larger company, I didn't even feel like I had the perspective to know what was going on.
Right.
Like I didn't even know what the problems were to be able to fix them.
Yeah.
And a big portion of what we talk about here is growth and scaling and building and all. And, you know, all of that is almost contradictory to what you're saying, because, you know, in those bigger organizations, you have less impact overall. So it's like, how do we scale it, but still have that kind of small company feeling where everyone makes that impact?
And that has been something we've tried to instill into our company, is to keep that autonomy centric, and make people, like, I think everybody, I read a book a really long time ago called Drive, and it was all about how people like autonomy, mastery, and purpose. And those are the three things that that really intrinsically motivate people. And those are far better motivators than compensation and carrots and sticks per se. And that is something that we've tried to really instill. I think our careers provide for that mastery and that purpose side of things, but making sure that people still have that autonomy and the ability to see, like, understand the whole perspective, and then see what needs to happen and actually be able to do something about it.
I like the concept. And my question on that is also related to a level of autonomy, because I think that's something that we all three would agree with, that we enjoy. But in the confines of an organization that is strictly going in a certain path or a certain direction, how do you create the boundaries, the bumper rails, so to speak, that you can have autonomy within it, as long as we're headed, like, because when I think, just to be clear, when I hear autonomy, sometimes I hear, well, I work for a lock and security company, but I have autonomy, so I picked up some plumbing projects for us.
Right.
And you're like, that is an extreme level of autonomy, because I can go way outside of those boundaries. But how do you, from a leadership perspective, also create really a clear vision of where we're headed, and here are the kind of guardrails we need to stay in? And as long as we're inside of those, then you have autonomy to make decisions that align within those boundaries.
Yeah.
Chad, I know you've got a book reference coming up here.
Yep.
Number one impact. Oh, the first career moment for you. Turn the ship around. Tell us about that.
Turn the ship around. I've talked about this book on so many different podcasts over the years, and here's the
humble
reason.
Brag right there.
Here's the reason why. Is one, this was a gift to me. I think the coolest thing, there's multiple aspects of this. This was a gift. I paid $0 for this particular book.
Who's the author?
David Marquet.
David Marquet.
Ooh,
right.
That's
He was an admiral.
Yes,
Admiral, U.S. Navy, I think.
Nuclear submarine commander.
Okay.
And I heard him speak at a Vistage conference that I went to a long number of years ago. I actually found the year one time, but it's irrelevant. It was more than a decade ago. And I heard him speak and receive the book. Both of these were the admission to the Vistage conference was complimentary, and the book was complimentary. So I walked away with some very valuable pieces of information. I did not apply it at all when I walked away from it. And so the reason that I say, like, one of the reasons this was impactful and a big moment for me is I got the information, I got the tools, but I also didn't have the pain or the motivation or the drive, the impact, whatever you want to say, to actually implement it or apply it. So the book sat on my shelf for a couple of years. And then I finally, in a state of frustration, decided to read it, and went through the process of reading this book. And the impact on it was, there's a certain point in here, and I should probably highlight it, but it was around the fact that the entire Navy's, and specifically commanding a submarine, was all a top-down perspective, and it was really focused on somebody being in a command and control environment that said, you do this, and everybody waited on the commander to give the next step. And it clicked with me, and I really understood where our organization was at that time, because I was sitting in that position of being able to call the shots at everything that we needed to do, which jobs we needed to go to, what products we needed to use to solve that particular problem, and all of. But the downside was everybody was waiting on me to give them the next move. And so the burden around that was also the limiting factor of our growth. And it was like this dead stop in the tracks moment where you're like, holy crap, everything that I'm doing is incorrect.
I might be the problem.
Yeah, I'm the problem. And I've taken away the autonomy from everybody, and I don't even like it. Like, nobody else likes it. I don't like it. I'm frustrated.
And you're burning out. You're making all these decisions.
No good vacation, no good relaxation. I mean, and when I say vacation, I'm talking not even the ability to go to lunch. And I've said that multiple times. Go to lunch with a sales rep, or just go take a walk around the business park, and your phone's constantly ringing because people are asking you for the next decision. And then if I were to ever just not answer my phone or not respond, then people just sit and
freeze.
They would wait for me to give them the next call. And it was something that I just really learned that was a limiting factor to our growth. And then the book kind of talks through the reverse of that, and how to create a culture where you're giving people the ability to make those decisions. You're making more of a collaborative environment. And so it was a massive turning point, because this was around probably 2014-ish timeframe, 2015, something in that timeframe, where I realized if we're going to grow outside of our current churn, I have to change, and I've got to be better. I've got to be a better leader. And that was an impactful moment, because you sit there and go, okay, if I've got to be a better leader, and I'm not trained on leadership. I didn't go to college for leadership training or business administration or any of those types of things. Where and how do I go about getting these tools and resources? Because I'm also buried. I'm buried in the day-to-day, and also I've got to figure out a way to become a better leader and learn. So those were two like conflicting things and challenging things that we had to walk through at the time. But the reason that it's impactful to me, and the reason that I would put it up there in that kind of top tier list, is because it unlocked the next 3 or 4 years of learning and 3 or 4 years of application to get in front of the right people, change some of the groups that I was circled in, and really an education on how to become a better leader. And then the patience, which I have very little of, to apply it into our organization and wait for the results to happen, because it wasn't a 1 day or 1 week implementation. It was years and years and years of that churn, and in losing people in the meantime, because of, one, the change that was happening, and two, because of the position that I had put the company in, all relying upon me. So
yeah, and that sounds basically hand in hand with what Tony was just talking about, I think, with because once you're in that role of the admiral making is this intention-based leadership? Is this the same book? Or is that Leaf? It is the same book. Yeah. So I read that one a couple of years ago as well. It was probably a recommendation from you, Chad, but just the simple change from can I do this to I intend on doing this makes all the difference in the world. Right. And I would say this is the number one biggest impact on small business trying to grow. Once you get to about, I'm going to say 12, 13, 14 staff, max is going to be about a team of 17. If you're any higher than 17, you really need to get this in place, because you just don't have the capacity at length to make those decisions all day, every day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lars,
any thoughts?
You're up next.
I'm up next. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I had to be careful how to phrase this one because I didn't want you guys taking credit for this. So I've been thoughtful on this. But we met our group. We kind of got together, probably 10 years ago? Was it a little less, a little more?
Our first offsite, or are you talking about just
just how long have we known each other?
Yeah, probably around.
I actually have that down as one of mine.
Oh,
that's good.
The date that we all met?
September 26th, 2015.
Oh.
Was that
Whirlwind Country Club?
That was the first time.
Yeah, that is true.
The only reason I found it was because
he has it tattooed on his own,
and I had a photo of a blue Tesla that was like custom blue wrapped at Whirlwind. Like I remember we played golf there. But yeah, anyways, continue with your story.
And what club did you use on the second shot of hole 3?
Yes, this is quite pertinent to our.
Well, you asked when.
And
what
did you have for lunch, Tone?
We did have lunch after that round. I do remember that.
I actually don't recall that. I was probably too pissed that I beat Lars by only one.
Wow, I don't remember that happening.
I remember Lars had a set of rental clubs.
Yeah, I thought I played left-handed and beat you guys, didn't I?
Okay.
I actually, so funny story. Ben.
Oh, perfect.
Anyways, I'll save it for mine. You go ahead.
Please.
Yeah.
So September of 2015. So it's been a decade.
So it's been a decade. Almost. Thank you, Tony, for clarifying this. See, this is why the YouTube channel means so much more than the podcast. If you can actually see the reaction.
If you would have seen the eye rolls that just happened because it's
God,
unfortunately
it's been
4 months.
It's been 11 years and 7 months and 24 days. Thank you, Tony. My point was, I can't believe I'm even saying this now with this intro, but 10 years ago,
you want to revise it?
We got together and we were introduced through the MSC network, which most people will know what that is that are listening to this, but it's Assa Abloy is a manufacturer in the industry. They put together a group of kind of the larger locksmith companies in North America. And the three of us were put together. We're on an advisory panel and just, provide suggestions for the program. Anyway, so we I don't know, I think we're all kind of the same generation and kind of same area of our business and both more an entrepreneurial business mindset than, the traditional technical mindset that is in our industry. But, we started talking about, just not really having a lot of guidance. I mean, figuring out how to do this, making a lot of mistakes, not knowing what was good, what was bad, where, how much revenue should a truck be doing? How, how much are you spending on marketing? What are you doing for this? Like all these questions that we're just kind of figuring out as we go. So it really, I think, amplified. I'm going to pivot into the business meeting online group. And that was a real pivotal moment, I think, in lots of businesses. So that was 2020, right? 2021. Mm-hmm. So that was when COVID started. Chad had the idea to bring together and just make a platform to have a bunch of business owners jump on and talk about, what was happening with COVID. These were early days. No one knew what was going on. We're all running around with trying to find wet naps or whatever we're using to clean everything. Like it was just chaos, right? But what it really did was it gave us the opportunity, or it turned into an opportunity to have about 10 or 12 or 15 business owners all get together and discuss, the problems we're having, one with COVID, but also kind of establishing what everyone is doing. So a precedent or, a benchmark. And we've taken that kind of mindset and really started establishing, we did a survey of, financial details. We disclosed a lot of information together and really started understanding how our businesses worked. And it really gave us the opportunity and a whole other view of, where our businesses are at relative to the industry. Mm-hmm. And the three of us, obviously, we've taken it kind of that next step. And we, in theory, get together a few times a year. We had a brilliant idea of going to Minneapolis in February once, anyone that knows Minneapolis in February, it's not a huge tourist destination. But we got together and, brought our laptops and brought a bunch of whiteboards and really just tried to map out and figure out, okay, what are the benchmarks? What should we be aiming at? But it was more than one, it was a huge impact on the business because it actually set some benchmarks, and we still discuss, okay, where are you at for this? Where are you at for that? And figuring out kind of financially how our businesses work. But it also impacted, it changed me in my mindset of, it's possible, and I don't even like saying this, but it's possible I'm not the smartest guy in the room. Just give that a minute to set in. But I'm not saying that was true. I'm saying it's possible. So it really amplified and showed me how important it was to have these peer kind of groups, whatever you want to call them, but having people with a like-minded mindset, especially in your own industry, to talk through some of the common problems. Because it turns out, and we've joked about this before, but, Chad in North Carolina is a very project-heavy company. I'm in Alberta, Canada. I'm a very service-based, and Tony's in the middle. And then we put our financial statements side by side, and they're almost identical, right? All the ratios are about the same. Mm-hmm. So it really gave us an opportunity to take a microscope to what we were doing and see where we could leverage it, where we needed to improve. So that was number one for me, because it just changed my whole mindset of I was in this, kind of fighting the world versus there's a whole group of us trying to improve. So,
yeah, I was thinking about that a couple of months ago, actually, when we were all together down in Roanoke, and I mentioned it to our friend Ben, and I was like, it's crazy how, like, thinking about how different my career would be had we not all been on the advisory board meeting. Like the amount of...
We should probably give Ben a shout out for that too.
No, yes,
because he was
absolutely.
The one that actually brought us all together.
What I told him, I was like, thank you for that. Like it's interesting to think about how different our businesses and frankly lives would be. So I think that was one of my takeaways, and one of my career moments was just being part of an advisory board with other like-minded people, learning from them, having something to aspire to. I know when I joined the advisory board, like, I found out, like, you have so much revenue and so many trucks and so much of this, and it gives you something to help motivate you, as opposed to thinking you're in this own little world by yourself. So I think having a peer group to bounce ideas off of and learn from, but B, just something to have some form of a friendly competition as well.
Yeah. So just a clarification there of your timeline, which I think it's impactful based off of the two joint things together, our offsite in Minneapolis and businessmeeting.online. So we actually got together in January of 2020, and the COVID pandemic hit in March of 2020. So there was about a 90-day period between those two meetings that everything went to poop, and
explicit rating coming.
Where we started up the businessmeeting.online, and we had this engagement level, and we had just come off of 90 days prior, being very transparent and very vulnerable with where our businesses were, and then being able to unleash that with a group of 15, 20 other business owners business leaders was massively impactful. Like, I think that is an era that, we're already referencing it now 4 years later, but 5 years later, but at a point, 5 years from now, over a decade, that can still be one of the most impactful 18 months of our businesses, because of the amount of learning and education and brain share that we had over an 18-month period, just working with each other day in and day out. It was wild.
Yeah. It's, again, this is taking me down a little different path, but I'm, first of all, again, a shout out to Ben Soltze and the impact that he made on us, and therefore on us Obloy, because I know he created 3 of the most loyal customers they're going to have. That's one. But us, taking it in the other direction is there an opportunity for us to do something like that within our industry? And I know, Chad, I think you've done that before, where, I'm just thinking commercial property managers.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what they're doing for, collab between different companies, but maybe there's an opportunity for us to bring, a group of commercial property managers together just to sit down and have a forum to bring this up. And hopefully the same result is, it creates a lot of loyalty with us.
Yeah.
But that's interesting. That's a good one for me. I kind of jumped back in front of you there, Tone. I think you're supposed to, or was that your number 2?
I'm trying to go in chronological order. I'm not necessarily saying one is better than the other. I don't know if we're going to make it through all 5 or not, but we can count that as my second or not. But
perfect. Tone, do you want to? That is your number 2. All right, Chad, you're in.
Just go with it.
Oh, yes. Okay. So I think this is the same thing I have on mine: the TLC and Vistage introductions. And here's the reason why. Just to spin a little bit off of what Lars just said, the financial understanding and acumen. So I would say this, and I want to try to set this up as easy as I can, because I think we're all three talking with a very base level knowledge because we lived it. Okay. But we are 3 guys that at that time, mid-30s, late 20s, trying to come together and figure out what's the next iterations of our businesses. And we literally Airbnb'd an apartment in Minneapolis. And Lars said it. We brought in the big white sticky notes and we just had them plastered all over the walls inside of this kitchen living room area of this apartment. And then we started dissecting all of our financials on a big spreadsheet to understand where we all lined up. And there were several takeaways from that whole thing that were very impactful career moments and shifts. Number one, neither one of the 3 of us were the smartest people in the room individually, but collectively. Lars had some strengths in some operations and financial areas. Tony had some strengths in some of the financial areas and understanding ratios and metrics significantly better. And then I had some operational knowledge. I didn't have the financial acumen at that time because that was something that was not part of my day to day. So we were able to collectively bring all those strengths together. And as questions started happening, there was a level of vulnerability and transparency that we all knew that we weren't the smartest ones in the room. And so we were all learning from each other collectively in that period. And it was an intensive 12 hours. It's like two days in a back-to-back 12 hours. And I walked away from that going, there is so much on the business finance side that I don't even, 5% of this information was I actually knowledgeable of. So it gave me a lot of understanding of areas that I needed for improvement. And I don't know about you guys, kind of how you walked away from that, but it gave me a really practical set of, these are the things that I feel like I do know. These are the things that I feel like I don't know. And so these are specific areas that I need to work on to improve in our business. And to get into that, financials, talking about net income percentages, where the P&L actually matters, when I need to pay attention to it, how often I need to be reviewing it, and how fast I need to get that information in so that we can be aware of profitability. Because I think at that point, P&L for us was something that we might have looked at once a year, well after the year closed, and it really was just that's how bad we did or whatever, right? It was always a tax implication. It was never a measurable that would help drive decisions in the business. So I walked away with a better keen understanding of that. Well, then fast forward, applying that into my Vistage group now, I was significantly more knowledgeable in what I was doing on the financial side when I walked into the Vistage group in 2022. But also, I came in and immediately realized I was in a group of people that were significantly more knowledgeable about their financials and their business operations than I was. And so I had to open up, be transparent and vulnerable there. So it was, I would say these two things stack on top of each other, because had I not gone through the process in Minnesota, I probably would have been a lot more reserved and less open to vulnerability when I got into this Vistage group, which is the benefit there, right? Is it's other industries. So I'm dealing with other companies that are in retail and in other service-based industries and things of that nature. So there's a lot of cross collaboration, but the financials are still the same. The financial metrics are still the same. So those were very career changing moments for me, because it got me to a point of realizing the things that I didn't know and then starting a path to become educated in that.
And I think that moves you right to that kind of next level. Like, I remember walking out almost the opposite of what you're discussing, Chad. I came walking out of our first TLC in Minnesota and thinking, I'm spending too much time on our financials. That was because that's where I started. That's my background, accounting. And I was like, wow, Chad's talking at this high level kind of leadership management. How do we get everyone going in the same direction? And, is my role to make sure we're counting every paperclip, or is my role making sure we're all going the same direction? So, I got to hire someone that can take this on, because I think the biggest impact I can make is more on what kind of Chad was doing. So that was my take when we left there.
Yeah. We also learned how to make really good coffee.
That was also the first time I saw anyone travel and have a suitcase specifically with a coffee making device in it.
Yeah, I will say, that was helpful.
It was
definitely improved my quality of life.
For everybody.
It was life-changing to know what a nice...
I still have the instructions of how much water should weigh versus how much the coffee grounds should weigh, because that was something I don't think I ever would have got to.
No.
Number 2 for me, and I already see that, Tony, you're not going to like this, but we're going to have a 2-part episode almost certainly. But
love it. That's okay.
We'll keep going. Number 2 for me is another... I'm going to call it peer group, and it's similar but different. And I think, Chad, you just talked about Vistage, and Vistage, I think people can probably just Google, but I think it's a peer group. You meet once a month and from different industries, and you get together and go through financial metrics, et cetera. Is that
effectively.
More or less? Yeah. So I hope Bob's not listening, but I refer to this group as the pigs. It was the peer innovation group, because, I like acronyms. But it's called the game group. I don't remember what it's actually, the acronym is. Doesn't matter. I had a conversation one day with...
Nobody else in the group has ever heard it called the pigs group.
No, I renamed the chat the pigs. So, there was a young lady joined us like 6 months in, and she's like, I'm one of the pigs. Yeah, welcome. She just loves that name. Yeah. So I was having a conversation with one of my good buddies, and the same thing, was a business owner. He's like, I don't really have anyone to be accountable to. I can kind of do whatever I want. Right. And I said, yeah, me either. He's like, if, I would like to have some kind of board of directors where, I'm forced to write down, this is what I'm going to do, and then have a check-in consistently. He said, he knew someone. Anyway, we put together our own group. Now, why this one was a little bit different is this started off like, this is a group of friends that are all business owners. So the guy that has a car dealership, there's a guy that owns a big retail chain, another guy's in insurance. So all different industries, but we had that personal relationship, which I think, certainly takes a level of trust, but really added, because you knew everyone was engaged and it came from a place of caring. It was like a radical candor thing. But why I reference this one is, a couple years ago, the first 11 years, I had 2 partners in the business, and they were my first cousins, and probably closer to brothers and cousins. And I got involved in the industry when they were already with the company. They invited me to join them, et cetera, et cetera. We moved and we acquired. And then, in 2023, I think we just, we just hit that point where I just wasn't happy with what we were doing. Whether it was I wasn't happy with myself, or I wasn't happy with our relationship or arrangement or how things were going. I just made the decision that I wanted to do something else. And I was struggling with this because, you add family dynamics to this. And I know Tony works in a business with his family. It just, there's lots, when you're in it with a family member, there's lots of other considerations. So that was really challenging for me. And then this group, the pigs, I would sit there and I would discuss, I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know what I want to do. And, finally, again, this is a close group of friends. Finally, they're just like, you're going to do something about this? Because if you're not, just shut up. Like you're whining. You're whining. Or, do something or get over it. And that ultimately, it was one of my closest friends, basically looked at me and was like, can we hold you accountable to this? Are you actually going to do this? Or you just want to whine every month? I was just, part of me was like, screw you, man. And part of me was also, screw you, but you're also right. And that kind of gave me all right, I got to make a decision one way or the other. And it ended up that my two partners exited. But, it was, again, something that was hugely impactful on my career. And if I was on an island, it wouldn't have happened. So it was like that motivation I needed and that challenge that I knew was coming from a place of caring that really kind of moved me to that next level.
Yeah. It's interesting that you bring that up, Lars, and probably as we need to end this episode and maybe break it into either two or go on to the next topic. But it just occurred to me that all three of us have walked through partnership transitions over the course of that 10 years that we have known each other. And I think in each and every single one of them, we've all helped share kind of the burden of conversation. I know between 2019 and 2022, when I was going through some partnership renegotiations, you guys were an easy sounding board because it was a safe spot to be able to really kind of get raw and say, this is what I feel. And also this is what I think I should do. And then also be a sense of advisory through that process to kind of move to the next point. And there's been many of those conversations that have been pivotal career moments and leading to this, where we are right now, that have been impactful because you have created, and I don't know that those conversations, and probably for this group with you and across the board, it would have been hard for us to get to those levels of conversations had not we gone through the other levels of transparency or vulnerability to where we could feel confident and competent to talk about it. Because it's like you sit in those situations and go, oh, I really don't have this part figured out, or I need to be able to communicate with somebody. But I've also, many people have ego or whatever that says, oh, I've got it all figured out. Everything's perfect. If you talk to most anybody, how's business? Business is great. Everything's wonderful.
It's great. Yeah. Life's
and
good.
then once you get kind of through that wall, then here are the things that I'm actually struggling with. And I think it's really cool to have a group of people that you can lean on to have those conversations and talk through it.
And especially because, for me, it takes the emotion out.
Yeah.
When, I remember, Chad, you were going through that period, and it's like, well, what you're feeling might not reflect, the logic part as well.
Yep.
Right. And being able to talk through these, well, this is what I think versus this is what I feel. And, kind of having that independent kind of, person, as long as it's coming, this is radical candor, but as long as it's coming from that place of caring, right. It's somebody's doing it to help you. It makes.
I think if I could be just making this up by all means, but I feel like there was a conversation that you and I had at one point through that process, probably on both sides of the of the conversation when you were going through your partnership discussions and when I was going through mine, of you asking the question, well, what's the worst thing that can happen? Like, really, at the end of the day, what's the worst thing? And then you have to process that out loud. And then it's like, well, if that happens, here's three
this is
ideas.
what I'm going to do.
Yeah. And, okay. Well, then it's really not the end of the world. Okay. And now, and then to the point of, okay, so when are you going to make a decision? What's the next step? And that's invaluable to have somebody outside of that because, separate from that, if you're not in a group already or you don't have other trusted advisors in your life, then you're really kind of on an island.
Yeah, I think there's another side of that too. That's just people are surprisingly more willing to help than you realize. I think a lot of times you think like, oh, this guy runs this huge business. He's not going to be able to help me, or he's not going to want to help me. And people are very open to helping. And a lot of times there's a fear of, I don't want to bother this person, but I ask you guys a million questions and you make fun of me for it, but you still don't give me answers.
That's true. Yeah. And the amazing part is the expectation of nothing in return.
Right.
Yeah.
That's generally speaking, the most successful people are the most generous with their time and their money with no expectation of return. That's incredible. Chad, do you want to land the plane here for episode 1?
Yeah. So do we want to continue on with this, or do we think?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. We're going to continue on with this as the group has decided. And
Chad
so
didn't want to, but
part 1 of the conversation around top career moments and what we've learned from them and how it shaped us as individuals and probably shaped our entire organization. So thank you for joining us today. We have a list of all of the episodes on our website, unlockedpodcast.com. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel if you want to see the video version of this, as well as whatever platform you're listening to this on. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. We have a new episode that comes out every Thursday morning. And we really appreciate the feedback from those that are subscribed and those that do listen every week. They send us emails, messages on LinkedIn, and it's really cool to be able to hear the feedback that we're getting, things that can help us to continue to move the conversation forward, or other topics that we should cover as part of our business operations. So thank you very much to all those that are what's the word I'm looking for? Consistent
listening
with that, and those that are listening on a weekly basis. We've got another wonderful few topics to discuss outside of this. So make sure you subscribe, because we've got lots of episodes on the horizon for you. Thank you guys for joining us today. It's the unlockedpodcast.com, the website. Thank you for being here. We'll see you next time.